I just love looking out here and seeing all the love. I am doing the number one thing that I want to be doing right now. There's nothing that I want to do more. It makes me happy just thinking about you guys. Yes.
You make us happy.
Oh, thank you. Okay, my talk today is on the creative process. And there are many creative processes that are put out there, and they're all great. But this particular one was put forth by Charles Fillmore. And what I love about this particular creative process is that it's like once we get started in the process, it kind of pulls us along with it, right? And that's what we like, right? Because what happens is we get engaged with our divine nature. We're in alignment with our divine nature, and then Spirit pulls us along as we are creating in our life. Now, the unity philosophy defines aligning with our divine nature or being engaged with the divine nature. That's simply when we think about the first two principles that we read, that God is everywhere present. God is everything. God is the all. Whether you want to call that source or infinite mind, divine mind, infinite intelligence, the force, the quantum field. Lynn McTaggart, she was the first author I ever read who called it the field. And now, quantum scientists who are diving deep into the study of quantum physics, what they're finding is that molecules and atoms, well, they're not the tiniest thing anymore. There's stuff that's tinier. And then they think, whoa, we've discovered the tiniest thing there is. And then there's something tinier. And as they look into that, what they're seeing is there's consciousness. There is consciousness in that. So that is the field. That is the field. And we are all made from that stuff. Each of us. We are all made, we are all emanations of source energy. We were created in the image and likeness of our Creator. As Spirit creates in the whole, we create in our life. So we do create as Spirit does. The Spirit creates through intention, sets an intention, and then it focuses on a thing, and then it takes action on it. And so something then is created. Now, we are always creating, but we're just not always creating the life we actually want. Okay, we may think we want to get really great at playing a musical instrument, okay, the harp or something like that, right? But then we sit in front of Netflix all day and think, wow, it'd be so great to be a harp. I wish I was a harpist. I wish I played the harp. What else is on Netflix? Okay? We may think I want to have vital energy in our body. And then we're watching Netflix and eating our fast food or whatever and thinking, man, it would be so great if I didn't feel this tired right now, right? So we're not always creating the life that we would actually create. And so this is the beauty of the creative process put forth by Charles Fillmore. It helps us to get in alignment with the life that it is that we want to create. Now he calls the first step in this process the let there be light step. I love that. That's my favorite thing to say. What's your let there be light? If you look at the story of creation, and you really could go to any story of creation in any cultural tradition, and creation starts out of the darkness. And so Charles Fillmore he took his creative process from the creation story in the book of Genesis in the Bible. And it is, of course, it starts off as darkness, and then the worlds are born out of the darkness. Now, metaphorically, why this is the first step in our creative process, our let there be light, is because metaphorically, when we are not creating the life we want, we are stuck in something we don't want, right? We might be suffering or struggling. And that is our darkness. And I think that's why people will say things like, oh, wow, he was in a dark place. I was in a dark place. Okay, because that's metaphorically, that's where we're struggling, okay, is in that darkness. Now, with the creative process, we start right where we are, no matter what we are going through right now. Okay, no matter what kind of struggle or suffering we are in right now, right this moment, okay, as the universe was created, out of the darkness, the worlds were born. Whatever struggle we are in right now, whatever darkness we are in right now, out of that darkness, worlds are created. All we have to do is understand, keep thinking about the first two principles. God is all things. That light is all things. Everything that's ever been has come from that light. Everything that is yet to be will come from that light. Okay, and every divine idea, right? Consciousness comes from the light, right? Brilliant ideas and inspirations, things we hope for, that also comes from the light, our desires. So this original substance created all things, and we keep reminding ourselves of that in the beginning, there was the darkness and worlds were born out of it. Because we create as our creator, when we are in the darkness, worlds are also born out of that. Okay, what Source does in the big, we do in the little. So all we have to do is acknowledge that yes, there's a struggle about something right now. Right now, if there's anything we have to complain about, there's something to complain about, that is our darkness. In our darkness, we can get a lot of clarity looking at our own darkness. In our darkness, that's all the stuff we don't want in our life. All right, if we have health issues, poor health issues, or if we're in lousy relationships or boring relationships, if we are struggling with our finances, if we are struggling with our personal sense of success and feel like we're failing, that's our current darkness. But see, then what our darkness shows us is what we do want. We already know. We know what we don't want in our life so well. We know what we don't want, and we are really good at talking about it. We can share it over and over. We have it memorized, and maybe we turned it into a poem. But it's showing us, that darkness shows us what we don't want. So then we can decide, we can take the clarity from that, and we know what we do want. What we do want is vibrant health. What we do want is loving relationships. What we do want is abundance and success in our life. And really, if you think about any place in our lives where we can struggle, they can pretty much all fall into one of those four categories. And if we're doing okay in all those four categories, it's still good to expand. It's still good to expand in those categories, right? Who wouldn't want more vitality, more love, more abundance, okay, more sense of self-accomplishment, right? We all want that. So our let there be light, it allows us to receive understanding, because we've been in the darkness, we've been in that chaos, we've been in that mess, now we know what we do want. Now we get the opportunity to move out of resistance. And resistance is simply us looking at our problems and judging them and lamenting on them and writing in our diary about them over and over and over and over again, like for 2 years. Right? We're in resistance, and we have to keep complaining about all that. That's resistance. And what resistance keeps us from doing is moving forward. It keeps us from saying that, let there be light. We have to accept the current struggle we're going through. And accepting the current struggle we go through doesn't mean we have to let it be all the time. It doesn't mean we have to accept it in our life permanently. It doesn't mean we have to tolerate it. We don't have to suffer with it. Accepting it only means we're saying, this is how it is right now. This is how it is right now. If you had a paper cut, one of those big paper cuts you'd get from a file folder, right? Have you all had those? Okay, a big nasty paper cut. If you had a paper cut and you couldn't, say it was on your right hand and you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it's on your left hand, okay? You wouldn't look at that paper cut and think, God, I'll never be able to write again. Right? You wouldn't resist. You would just accept it. I have a paper cut, I'm going to wrap it up really good, and in a couple days I'll be able to do what I do. That's all acceptance is. It allows us to accept where we are right now so we can focus on our let there be light. Now, when we can focus on our let there be light, what happens is that we start engaging with our divine nature. And then our thoughts are illuminated by the light, and we are receiving divine ideas. We're receiving divine inspiration. We receive divine direction. That's what happens when we accept there's a problem right now, but we engage with our divine nature, so now we can be focused on solutions and see what comes through. And the let there be light stage, that's acknowledging that Source is all things and that we are part of that. And that as Source creates in the big, we create in the little. Okay, that's all we have to do in the let there be light stage. The second step, have faith. Have faith. And faith is just knowing without a doubt that something will be. And luckily, we have all already done this so many times we couldn't even count. All of us have experienced faith already, a divine knowing. We just knew it was going to work out. And if it's been done, it can be done. If we've had faith once before, we can have faith again. If you planted kale in your garden, you knew you'd get kale. If you planted squash in your garden, you knew you'd get squash. You knew something weird would not pop up in your garden like a piano, right? You knew that. You just had faith that you would grow. What would come out of the seed? You had faith. In the area of healing, all of us have had faith. When we've had that big nasty paper cut, we knew it would eventually heal. We would just put a Band-Aid on it and take care of it and protect it. We knew it was going to heal, but it's a process, so we had to let the body go through its process. If we've ever had a urinary tract infection or an ear infection or a sinus infection, some doctor gave us antibiotics and we went home thinking, all right, now I'm going to start improving. We had faith it would just work. We'd get over the infection. We've had the faith. We've had faith in our relationships. We trusted somebody would come through for us, and they did. We've had faith in our own ability to make money and feel successful, right? Somewhere we had a good idea, we knew it would work out, and then it did work out, and we made some money, or we got a promotion, or we learned something new. So we have had faith before, which means we can do it again. This is important because faith is the foundation for our let there be light. Our let there be light is like just this beautiful idea, but it needs a foundation for it. And so we create the foundation through faith. The third step is imagination. Now, in this creative process, what is really interesting about it is that as you embody these first two steps, right, the let there be light and have faith, now then the rest of this process will fall into place. It's not something you have to work at, right? Things start falling into place. So the next thing we do, we have our let there be light. We know what it is we want to create in our life. We have faith that it can be done. So now we use our imagination and we start imagining what that would be like in our life. Imagining. Charles Fillmore said that it is through our imagination that the formless takes form. And we do this all the time. We imagine so many areas of our life, we imagine them into being. You might imagine a birthday party or a dinner party, and you're imagining maybe the food that you'll serve. And maybe you imagine your guest list. And then you start imagining, well, how are these people going to get along? And then maybe in your imagination, you trim the guest list because you could see the potential for some drama, right? And you're doing all this in your imagination. So we use our imagination all the time. We imagine good things for us. Okay, we imagine how amazing it would feel to get off of sugar and flour, like the vitality that would flow through us. Right, Anne? Where'd you go? Okay, yeah. I got another sugar-free, flour-free person. Maybe we're imagining that even though it'd be hard and sad, that going off dairy would also be really good for us. So we did it. Right? So we're imagining things that would be good for us. We might imagine what it would be like to volunteer with some different places, right? And we kind of, in our imagination, we go there and we see how it would feel. Would it be a good fit, right? Would volunteering for a homeless shelter be as good a fit as maybe volunteering to stuff purses with a purpose, right? Okay, so we imagine these things first before we go try them on. That's how we know. In our imagination, we're trying on another life. We also imagine some things that are not good for us. Like my favorite thing, of course, is when I meet somebody with a cold, in my imagination, I'm like, oh great, now I'm gonna get a cold. I'm gonna get a cold. I might as well just stop right now and buy 12 boxes of Kleenex and a bag of cough drops. I'm gonna get that cold. I can feel it. Right? And then that person's like, it's just allergies. Okay. We imagine, we think about our physical challenges and we start imagining, what if this just keeps getting worse? What if it just keeps getting worse? And what if pretty soon I can't do this thing I want to do? And what if there's all these bad things that happen? We go there in our imagination. Or we think about money and prosperity in our imagination, right? Well, only the rich get richer. And, really rich people, well, they might have done something crazy to get that money. They're probably a drug dealer, right? So we're imagining these things. We're imagining these thoughts do not serve us. They don't allow us to grow in consciousness. If we want to make more money and then we feel like making money is a bad thing, we're not serving ourselves. So we're using our imagination all the time for better or worse. So we start with our let there be light, because this gives us the clarity on what we really, really want in our life. Then we have faith that it can be done, because if it's been done, it can be done. Right? So we have that faith. When we start visualizing this thing that we want, we see it happening in our lives. Okay, we're building it up. Okay, so we visualize the improvement, the growth, the expansion of more vibrant health, of deeper, more loving relationships where we can be authentic. We imagine like the improvement and the growth and the expansion of having abundance in our life, and the way that we grow our consciousness to make that happen, and how amazing that feels, right? Success. What do we want to just create for personal growth or like for our community? We can imagine that and the expansion and the excitement that comes along with that. Then we naturally flow into the next step, which brings us understanding and will. Understanding and will. Understanding is how we put things together in our environment. We perceive our environment, we put things together, like if you've ever experienced a synchronicity, well, you understood what happened, right? So that's why you went, oh, you had an aha moment, right? When you had that weird coincidence and it was like, wow, okay, that was understanding. There is a story of King Solomon, who was once considered one of the wisest men that ever lived. And in his kingdom, there were 2 women, and each of these women had a baby. However, one of the women, her baby got very sick and died. So she was grief-stricken, she was heartbroken, she wasn't thinking clearly. She saw this other baby, and she stole the baby. And so now there's conflict, right? The mother is like, you stole my baby. And the other one was like, no, you're trying to steal my baby. Okay, so the women were brought before King Solomon. King Solomon was a very wise man, and he said, okay, so you say it's your baby, you say it's your baby. Well, I have an idea. We'll take this baby, and we'll cut it right down the middle, and you can each have a half of the baby. Now, the mom, who had lost her baby and who was grief-stricken and wasn't thinking great, she's like, oh, brother, what a ridiculous situation. Are you kidding me? Whatever. The other mom, though, was like, no. She had a very strong reaction. No, do not harm this child. Let her take the baby. Just do not harm the child. Now, King Solomon, being so wise, he perceived his environment, and what he understood, what he knew was that the real mother of that baby would not tolerate that baby being harmed in any way. The real mother of that baby would choose to give her own child away to save its life. And so that's how King Solomon knew who the real mother was. He had understanding. He was able to perceive everything that was going on. Now, when we are naturally engaged with our divine nature, when we are in alignment with our divinity, we open to this spiritual understanding. So we are now receiving direction from Spirit. We receive divine direction. We receive guidance. It might be an inspiration, but it might be a conversation we overhear. It might just be a sudden idea to stop somewhere that we were driving by. Okay, but now we are open. We are open to receiving divine direction. Then we also have divine will. Now, divine will at this point, because we're already engaged with our divine nature, divine will is it's our backup. It is our backup. It helps us to stay focused on what it is we want to create in our life. So we don't go down that rabbit hole of all the things we don't want. Okay, divine will helps us to stay focused on what we want. Now, this is not willpower. Willpower, turns out, we only have a finite amount of willpower, and most of us run through our supply of willpower by about 10 a.m. That's if you're up at 5 a.m., okay? So we run out of willpower, but see, willpower is only focused on the problem. Willpower is focused on the things we have to give up. Willpower is focused on the ways life is hard. Willpower is focused on, like, even going on Netflix and getting caught in those thousands of titles. If you find yourself surfing through all those titles and you can't find something to watch, it's because you have been tapped out on your willpower. You can't focus on anything, right? So we lose our willpower. But we never lose the energy from divine will, which is always available to us when we are engaged with our divine nature. Then we move into the next step, the fifth step, and Charles Fillmore called this judgment. He was also born like in the 1850s, and I think they use the term judgment differently, because I think a lot of us, when we hear the word judgment, we hear like, oh, that's self-righteous kind of thing. I'm right, you're wrong, being judgy. But what Charles Fillmore was talking about was just spiritual judgment, discernment, observing our life. This step, the fifth step, is where we check in on how we're living our life. We check in on ourselves. This is important. We want to discern. We want to look, okay, how am I living my life right now? Am I walking in the light? Am I walking in solutions? Am I walking engaged with my divinity? Or did I start complaining again? Did I go down the rabbit hole again? Am I focused on all the things I don't want again? Am I caught in the darkness again? So here's where we check in, because it's going to happen. And if we get caught in the darkness again, well, that's okay, because we remember worlds are born out of the darkness. But now we have to go back to the first step, let there be light. So we are looking at our situation. We're looking at the choices that we're making. Okay, are we making choices that honor our divine nature? Or are we making choices that fail to honor our divine nature? So if our choices are not honoring our divine nature, it's okay. It's telling us, go back to step one. Charles Fillmore said, when an individual is well balanced in mind and body, there is an equalizing force flowing in consciousness, and harmony is in evidence. When we are engaged in our divine nature, we immediately call forth harmony into our life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we haven't solved any of these problems yet. It doesn't matter if we're still struggling with all that. But if we have called forth our let there be light, and we are focusing on what we want to create instead, even if we just did it 20 seconds ago, if we can get aligned with our divine nature, harmony is right behind that. So we can start where we are right now and start experiencing harmony in our life. Our life doesn't need to be perfect. It does not need to be perfect. It doesn't even need to be 10% or 20% or anything, just right here, right now. If we're feeling stuck again, of course, if we want to remember to go back to step one. But if we're not, if we are engaged, what happens next is now the expansion, the expression of source energy through us and into our world. And that comes in the form of wisdom and love. And this is step 6, wisdom and love. What happens is that a divine idea begets more divine. So when Source created the worlds, it created beauty and wonder. Okay, a beautiful planet for us to live on. In the story in Genesis, when God did all the creating, remember every day, and it was good, and it was good, and that was good, and that was good. It's because the divine begets more of the divine. So as we have stated our let there be light, we know what we want to create, we're imagining it, we're really engaged with our divine nature. As it is coming through us now, because it all has to come through us to come into our life, as it is coming through us, it's more goodness. It's more divinity coming into our life. We're created in the image and likeness of our Creator. We are the divine that beget the divine, right? We're part of that cycle. That's why we are in the image and likeness of our Creator. So this step is all about bringing our divine inspiration into physical reality. Source keeps expressing itself through us, for us, as us, because what matters to source energy is to keep expressing itself through us, to keep making itself bigger in the world, to keep bringing more beauty, joy, adventure into the world. That's what matters to Source. More love, more compassion, more joy, more bliss. That's what matters to Source. Every single divine idea that we have, every single divine idea already contains within it wisdom and love. Already, it's already there. So a divine idea begets more of the same, that powerful, high vibrational expression and experience. Now this is why a divine idea, divine inspiration, is never a bad idea. It never would hurt us, it would never harm others. That's how we know it's divine. It may feel crazy and a little scary because it's also helping us get out of our comfort zone. But it's never going to harm us. It will never harm others. If our idea would cause harm to ourselves or another, that's not a divine idea. If our idea requires that we blame another person or a group of people, if it requires that we blame a political group, a religious denomination, a race of people, that is not a divine idea. That is not divine. That is small, petty stuff that is not worthy of the light that we carry. Divine expression, divine ideas are never divisive. They are never divisive. If it is divisive, it is not a divine idea from God. An idea from God, a divine inspiration, is always inclusive, because what is in the one is in the whole. We are all connected in spirit. Spirit does not care our personal preferences in politics or religion or dietary consumption. Spirit doesn't care if we just want to live on Snickers bars and Dr. Peppers. Okay, there's no judgment. There's just love, just love. The power that created the worlds is creating through each of us. Why would it inspire pettiness and smallness? It wouldn't do that. It wouldn't do that. That's too small for it. It wouldn't go there. It is love. It is love, so it is bigger than that. So divine ideas bring more divine ideas into our life. Now step 7. Finally, we can rest. On the 7th day there was rest. Now in this step, what we understand is we've gone through the process. We know our let our be light. We're having faith in it. We've been imagining it. So we're letting all the other steps just work through us. We act on divine guidance. We act from love because our creation is meant to bring more love into this world. So we're acting on that. And then at some point, we'll do what we can do. And maybe it's time to wait for it. Maybe it's time to wait for the next thing. If you were baking a cake and you followed the recipe perfectly, and then you put it in the oven, and it had to cook for 40 to 50 minutes, you wouldn't open the oven door after 2 minutes and freak out. Like, this is still all liquidy. Is this ever going to work? And you wouldn't just keep opening and shutting the door and letting all the hot air out, right? You would trust the recipe. You would trust yourself that you did it correctly. And maybe you would check it at 35 minutes, just to be sure. Some ovens are quick, right? And maybe you'd set the timer and check it again in 5 minutes. But you would trust that the oven would do what it does, and you would have a cake when you were done. That's what we do in the rest period. We trust the process. We trust that each step is building on the previous step. We already know what we don't want, so now we know what we do want. We have faith. We know if it's been done, it can be done. We've built the foundation. We have the image in our imagination. We're very clear on it. And so now we're focusing on the good. We're focusing on the good that we want to create in our life. And now we are naturally engaged with our divine nature. We are naturally engaged right now. Right now is the moment harmony starts coming into our life. More love, more understanding starts coming into our life. And what is coming through us is filled with love and wisdom. So it's for the highest good for everybody. Now we will all find ourselves at some point needing to come out of the dark. All of us, right? Some of us maybe have to do it on a regular basis. Okay, but when we can recognize what the darkness is showing us, It's just showing us what we don't want to tolerate in our life anymore. That's all. It's making us uncomfortable because as a spiritual being in a body, we're divine in nature, and if something is not in alignment with our divine nature, it shouldn't be in our life. It's going to make us uncomfortable. Okay, so the darkness is showing us, right, where we're struggling with our health, wealth, relationships, personal success. But just like the creation story, we choose what we do want to create. We set the intention. Because out of the darkness, the worlds are created. There's our let there be light. We just remember. We remember all the time that God is all things. God is all things in everything, in every person we love and admire, and in the people we don't admire. God is still present in that. They are still the activity of spirit in this world. Because God is everything. God is all. But that also means us. That also means us. So we know what we want. We have faith. We set the foundation. We use our imagination, see what we want to create. Understanding and will provide us with the ability to stay focused and to receive divine direction. And then we check in with ourselves. We check in. Am I feeling good? Am I making choices that honor my divinity? Or am I complaining again? Am I stuck in that swirling vortex of darkness again? Right? Do I need to go back to let there be light, or can I go forward now? I can go forward. I can go forward, and now what's coming through me, because I am engaged with my divine nature, what's coming through me is full of love and wisdom, and that is what I am spreading out into this world. For that is what each of us are worthy of carrying. That's what is worthy of us, the love and the wisdom. It is worthy of us. That is our gift to the world. And then we rest and just allow what needs to happen. Just allow. So the creative process, what it's doing is it's allowing us over and over and over again to re-engage with our divine nature, to remember that God is all things, to remember that we are also an emanation of that. When we are engaged with our divine nature, that's when we feel the happiest. That is when we are the most productive. That is when we are bringing the most beauty into this world. That is when we are bringing forth divine solutions that are for the highest good of all people. Not just particular people, for all people. And that is how we create heaven on earth. So until next time, remember that you are the activity of spirit in a body. You are the heart and hands of spirit in this world. You are a soul designed for growth and goodness. In everything you do, you are blessed. And so it is. So it is. Thank you. All right, I have my lovely band is going to come up here.